We're over to you, pal, this morning, afternoon, evening, wherever people are.
Good afternoon, Dave. I was just listening in there, and I guess you've had a lot of problems this morning with Mr. Boardman.
Even as on my legs are dropping out with stress this afternoon now.
I was going to say, how does one follow Stan Boardman? The guy is an institution, isn't he?
Well, the thing was, he couldn't get on it to begin with, and then he's ended up cutting himself off at the end before we could even say bye to him. So,
well,
classic.
You need to get him back on again sometime, Dave. And
he's having his own show. He's having his own show, bless him.
Great.
So, fingers crossed, he knows what he's doing with that.
Indeed. Okay. Well, we are. This is Bill Anderson, and we are coming live from the Costa del Sol. You can tell it's live and not pre-recorded. Otherwise, we would have been on at 1 o'clock. You just got to love things that happen live. I was due to do a live stream this week in Mijas, and all of a sudden, the live stream software said live stream is not available at the moment. So it's like, well, plan B. So we recorded it. My guest today is JohnTowell. And John is a barrister in the UK, but also works and lives down here on the Costa del Sol. Welcome, John.
Good afternoon.
How are you doing?
Very well, very well. How do I follow Stan Boardman?
There we go. I don't know. I mean, just the best we can. John, you're not calling, or you're not joining us from the Costa del Sol as such at the moment, are you? You're up in the...
I'm fortunate enough. In addition to having an apartment on the beach, I'm fortunate enough to have I use the term fortunate very loosely. I have a decaying Cortillo up in the Alpujarras.
Yeah, and
if you take driving over Lemons and then go another hour upwards.
Yeah.
I am.
But for those that don't know, the Alpujarras are sort of in the middle of Andalusia, and they go from Granada all the way down to Almeria on the east coast. But you're more in the Granada side, aren't you?
Yeah, the Granada side. It would be the Auvergne or the Limousin of France, if people want a reference point.
Sure.
For the North Yorkshire of England, similarities.
But just to give people an idea, where you are is somewhere around 1,400 meters above sea level.
Yeah, it's a little bit less than that. The highest village in the mainland apparently is Trevelez.
Yeah.
The pronunciations are very approximate, and I'm near Busquista, so maybe more like 1,000 meters, whatever that is in feet.
Right. Okay, but it's still pretty high anyway.
It is.
Yeah. We love the Alpujarras and have made a couple of escapes there, kind of late summer, because although it's warm because of the height, the temperatures are just a little bit fresher at night time, and
yeah. I mean, luckily the walls I have left are about half a meter thick, so you don't really notice it.
So is this the kind of year in Provence type thing? Is it where you buy an old farmhouse and?
Yeah, I think Peter Mayle started it all, didn't he? He's to blame for everything. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, it certainly it's a beautiful place. In fact, when we were there last time, I do a lot of writing. And I said to Vicky, sometimes I'd love to just rent something up here and just lock myself away from everything and do some writing.
It's very difficult to find somewhere to rent. I found this when I was looking for the place. In the summer, it's very difficult to find somewhere.
Sure.
There are places, but it's not... The BBC haven't done that show where they say, come and buy in the Alpujarras. And when they do that, it'll be even busier. But at the moment, it's mainly Spanish tourists, I think.
Yeah, but they do great cured hams up in Towell.
It's so the air is so dry. It's perfect for the hamon.
Yeah. And I have to say, we bought a couple from Towell. We've been up there, and people rave about them, but I have to say that they are the dog's bollocks of jamones, of hams.
Yeah. I go to a lot of legal functions on the coast, and they serve the ham, and you think, oh, okay.
Yeah. So John, tell us where you're from.
I'm from between Great Ayton, between Middlesbrough and York. I'm just at the last outpost of North Yorkshire.
The last outpost of North Yorkshire, right? Heading into where would that be next?
Middlesbrough would be the nearest big town.
Right. Okay. And what brought you down to the Costa del Sol?
Well, I got to, after going on 30 years at the bar, basically I had enough. I had some regular clients, and I just thought I can do this. I can do this virtually. So I actually bought a cave house in Granada.
Right.
And then that lasted about 2 years, and then I just got a job.
What was living in a cave house like, John?
Really fantastic. Everyone in the village, the Spanish and the English, were completely nuts. The temperatures went from 0 to, and you could only record up to 50 on the thermometer. But in the cave, it went from about 18 to 23. It was great. It was just a crazy way of living. It was either English weather or boiling. It was like 2 seasons.
Really? Yeah. I mean, people, it's a sort of romantic notion, isn't it?
Yeah, cave houses are not for everyone, but once you understand what cave house you need, it's great. I mean, especially with the, you've probably done a talk on the new energy tariffs, but you don't need any energy to run a cave because of the insulation.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. They're very interesting places. I mean, do they just advertise these in estate agents? Cave for sale.
I was through a friend. A friend bought one, and me being me, I went with him to visit, and I said, well, I could just come down here and live here, do a bit of online work, and yeah, like I say, that lasted a very short period of time before I went off to work for a law firm on the coast.
Right. Okay, so in the UK, John, you're a barrister, yeah?
Yeah.
And for the uneducated amongst us,
is this the old bar question? The difference?
Well, yeah, no, it really is just so that we're clear about the difference between a barrister and a solicitor.
Yeah, that's the old question you get asked all the time. It used to be in the old days. It used to be that a solicitor couldn't go to certain courts, but a barrister could,
right.
And members of the public couldn't go direct to a barrister, but they could go direct to a solicitor.
Right.
That was the difference. But now that's pretty much maintained. But now some barristers, after a certain seniority, you can have what's called direct access.
Okay.
And some solicitors can do another exam and they can appear in court. But by the by, we keep the traditional rules. That's what we've studied for, and that's what we do.
Right. So do you get to wear a wig?
No, because I'm an employment law specialist, and I get down as well, so it's great. I have a wig at home in England.
Right. So there's a kind of traditional role of the barrister, but you're saying that's kind of changed a bit, and
well, I think people are allowed to change, but if you're studying to be a barrister, it's because you want to be self-employed, you want to appear in court. If you study to be a solicitor, you're more happy to be office-based, maybe not go to court so much.
Right.
So, but it's possible.
Right.
If I have clients come to me direct, which I do, I can do that. And if I was a solicitor and I wanted to appear in the Court of Appeal, mm-hmm. I could do that as well. But people, like you say, people keep the roles that they've studied for in the main.
Right. Okay. So your speciality then, your specialism was in employment law. John.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not very glamorous.
No, it doesn't have the feel of Perry Mason, does it?
No, Sherry Blair did a lot for us. Sherry Blair QC, she's employment law specialist. But no, it's not this. It's not Rumpole, is it? It's not LA. Yeah. No.
But you know what, John? I think that there are so many occupations that from the outside or from what we're fed by TV and things, we think of them as glamorous. But the reality is something really quite different, isn't it?
yeah, you're not up till 2 o'clock in the morning reading papers, catching a train at 6 o'clock in the morning. Then there's something wrong with the documents.
Right.
That's life,
And then you got some office boy or office girl running into the court in the last minute with a document that was missing.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And in the good old days before Zoom, that was it. But yeah, and cross-examination, the fun part, that's probably 1% of your working life.
Really? So do you miss that, John?
I do go back to England occasionally to do cases if it's a big case, but I've had clients now for the same clients for over 20 years, and if something can be settled, it's settled. We know we're right or we know we're wrong, and if we're wrong, it's settled. On the whole, lawyers are encouraged to settle because we know what the outcome is going to be. Hopefully, sure. Settle or the other side, drop the case. But I do go back. But I think we mentioned. I've mentioned this to colleagues and things that the COVID has actually brought the legal profession forward 10 years in that now there's video conferences and things like that. Mm-hmm. So it has helped, and I've done cases here online.
Right. Okay. I was just thinking that for some things, maybe missing the personal contact could be a bad thing.
Yeah. I mean, because when you're examining a witness, to see the witness and things like that, Mm-hmm. But I think it needs must. Necessity is
sure.
of the.
Well, I guess what it has allowed is for you to continue working through all of this period.
Yeah. I mean, the law firm and for myself, it goes on. People are discriminated against, dismissed, made redundant, which is a form of dismissal. But
sure.
It goes on.
Have things become more complicated? I know in Spain it's become incredibly complicated in terms of employment and sacking people and things with these temporary, what do they call it? Suspension of contracts and all this kind of stuff.
Well, I have to say my expertise doesn't lie in Spanish employment law, but right. In Spain, the employee, rightly or wrongly, not to be anything political, is much more protected than they are in the UK. Yeah. Which some people could argue has a negative impact on business, but I don't want to go there.
No, it's a very complex one, isn't it? Because actually, I had businesses in the UK, and getting rid of somebody, even then, I've been here 20 years, but even then, getting rid of somebody for very good reasons, not just because I was sick of the sight of them, was very complicated.
Unfair. One of the biggest companies called Peninsula was actually it's actually owned by Betfred, the bookmakers, and the story, they sacked somebody for a good reason, but they did it wrongly and they were sued. Yeah. So they thought there's a market in this, and now they run Peninsula, which is a huge organization.
Which defends people who've been sacked, basically.
No, it doesn't. It acts for the employers. The employer.
Oh, right, okay. So it makes it easier to sack people.
Well, I mean, if you, the problem is your employment law in a nutshell is have a very good reason and then go about it the right way.
Yeah, sure.
That's it in one sentence. My colleagues will be groaning at that, but that's one sentence.
Yeah, I mean, I did have the occasion to go down that route and did it with a solicitor every step of the way before we actually started the process. It still didn't end all that easily or well, because the person is still going to claim unfair dismissal. But I actually was already in Spain, and I got a phone call saying, you have to come to an industrial tribunal. And I said,
well, that proves it was a long time ago, because it's the employment tribunals now.
Right. Well, I said, well, that's fine. I'm in Spain, so if you're happy to pay my plane fare and put me up in a hotel and meet my costs while I'm over there, just let me know when it is.
I'm sure the Employment Tribunal, as it is now's budget, doesn't cover that for witnessing.
It didn't stretch to that then either, John.
Normally, you get a train ticket, you're lucky second class.
Yeah. So okay, you came from the UK to live in a cave.
Yeah.
and,
As you do.
And then you moved down to the coast. What drew you down to the coast? The weather, the sun, the sand, the sea?
The climate's a lot. Anyone thinking of moving to Spain, obviously Google the historic temperatures, because the climate inland is nothing like the climate on the coast.
No.
But so I moved down to the coast and took up a position as the legal director at Just Law Solicitors.
Yeah. So I know that you will claim not to be an expert in various things, but because your role with Just Law is really getting the clients into the right.
Yeah. I mean, it's two things. It's getting the clients to the right Spanish lawyer, and it's going to use the word training the Spanish lawyer to be respectful of how English people deal with things.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but I think that's important, because there's a big cultural difference between the UK and Spain, and I'm not saying one is better than the other, but there is a difference. And my wife is Spanish, and sometimes we'll come away from somewhere, and I'll say, "God, he was really rude," and I'll say that, and she will say, "Well, no, he wasn't being rude. He was just being direct." And you know, certainly for Brits, they expect a certain type of interaction, don't they? So
yeah. I mean, one of the key things was 9 till 5. Just be 9 till 5. That's one of the key. And that, I think that for English people, that's the main thing. You never know when a place is closed in the afternoon and things like that. So I said, 9 till 5, and as you said, a bit less direct.
Yeah, but because my wife used to work for a British company, but she was here in Spain, and something happened, and she did something which probably wasn't done quite the right way, and the chief executive in the UK said, "Okay, Vicky, we need to learn from this, but might I suggest that we do it differently next time?" And Vicky said, "Oh, you made a suggestion." And I said, "No, it actually wasn't a suggestion."
I'm often saying to, colleagues, well, why did you say it that way? And, we're giving the right advice, but I think, it has to be the English perception of a solicitor is much more friendly and, like an old family friend, as opposed to this is the law. Which we, it's a distinction, we have to make it more the English way of doing things.
Yeah. But did you, in order to work within the legal system here, John, I guess you would have done some kind of conversion?
No, I don't. No, I'm not registered or qualified to appear in Spanish courts or anything like that. We have, lawyers to do that. So I'm not putting myself forward as a Spanish legal profession. We have lawyers with just as much experience as me who are very capable and speak perfect English.
Right. Okay. So you really focus on the kind of backroom part of the law firm, yeah?
Everything's running properly. Yeah. Nowadays, I mean, just for one example, I mean, when I studied, no one taught us anything about marketing. Social media didn't exist. The internet didn't exist. So it's a case of someone has to fill that function, which I do. And again, the main thing is making sure that everybody sees the right lawyer and everybody has a good experience and is happy with the outcome.
Okay. John, we're going to take a very short break just now. We're going to take the one break because we've lost a little bit of time at the beginning of the show. And we're going to listen to a nice happy song from the Foundations. Hi, welcome back. I'm Bill Anderson. We're coming live from the Costa del Sol and the mountains of Granada with John Towell, my guest for today. John is a barrister in the UK and legal director for Just Law Solicitors down here on the coast, on the Costa del Sol. Welcome back, John, from the heights of the Alpujarras. I was just thinking, John, of the irony, and I understand, you're a legal man and you want to watch your words, but you're saying, no, I'm not an expert on this and I'm not an expert on that, but Bob down the bar's an expert on everything.
Oh, absolutely. It's every lawyer will tell you that once someone's had some advice that's wrong and done something, it's worse for the client and better for the lawyer because it's more money to put it right.
Right. Yeah. And I'm involved with a lot of foreigners here on the coast, and the number of times I get not exactly those words, but somebody told me that all I need to do is, and I'm not a lawyer, I know very little about Spanish law, but I'm looking at this and thinking, that doesn't look right.
And with it being Spanish law, even if you have an understanding of the English legal system or the England and Wales, it doesn't mean that you understand the Spanish way of doing things.
Yeah, so I mean, John, you work in a legal firm. You must have learned a lot just by osmosis and being in that sort of environment. Yeah,
that's more dangerous.
So, I mean, would you say that the legal system here is very different from the legal system in the UK?
Roman law, Napoleon. I think the easiest way of explaining it, as I understand it, the usual caveat, is that it's more based on the civil code, more based on statute, whereas in England it's more case laws interpreted in the statute. I think.
Right. Okay.
That's the difference. And rightly or wrongly, it takes longer in Spain. It just does.
Yeah, I mean the legal processes in Spain seem to be very drawn out and very complicated.
It does. It takes a long time. I mean, maybe that's due to the funding of the legal system. I really don't know. I don't know.
Or due to the bureaucracy behind the legal system,
well,
possibly.
Maybe it's something to do with Napoleon and the government. There you go.
Let's blame Napoleon. Yeah. Right. What was I going? Yeah. Just give us a bit more detail about what your sort of day-to-day work looks like, John.
The day-to-day work is, I mean, in no particular order of priority. Is making sure that we have the right lawyers for the demands from the clients.
Right.
So, for example, recently we took on a tax advisor, is a lawyer but a tax advisor from KPMG, and we took on an accountant from PricewaterhouseCoopers. I could have got those the wrong way around.
Okay.
With my colleagues, and we opened a new office in Marbella, because if English people go into business in Spain, they need tax and accounting, and even if you just live in here, you need a tax advisor now.
Well, actually, even if you don't live here, I think it might be even more important because it's so easy.
Isn't in the legal complexities of the world, the non-resident tax isn't a big thing.
But what I was thinking is that it is, to have someone looking after your tax liabilities in Spain, I think is quite important because if you don't get it right, the fines start rolling in very easily and very quickly, don't they?
Punitive would be the word to describe them.
Is that an understatement? Yeah.
That'll be an understatement. Yeah. There's lot. Now if English people stay here for more than 183 days, you become a tax resident. Have to pay taxes in Spain. even if you're not here 183 days, you have to pay non-resident tax. You could pay some tax on the profit of your property, even if it's your only home, unlike England. It's very, very, very complicated. So we made sure we had qualified tax specialist in the firm as well.
Yeah, you were saying earlier, John, and I think I can identify with situations that I know when you said this. That when people start off doing things on their own or on the vice of Bob down the bar, and eventually comes to a legal practice, it's good for the lawyers because it costs more to sort it out. But what would you say from your experience are the kind of errors that people make by trying to do things on their own that probably would be better done with the help of a solicitor?
I mean, the thing that springs to mind is wills.
Okay.
Now, what can happen is, we make no bones about it, you do not need a lawyer to have a will in Spain. Not trying to tell anyone that they do. But what happens is Bob downloads something off the internet and gives it to somebody and says, you can take this to the notary and the notary will register it as a will for a fee. And that's fine. That document will be registered. It might, there could be some problems with it being valid. But you will save money by doing it that way. But if you'd have come to a lawyer, say you're an English person living here in Spain, and the lawyer would be able to give you the tax advice. So there may be a way of leaving the money to the children that saves you a huge amount of tax. So coming to the lawyer, you can recoup their fee tens of times over.
Sure.
But yes, you can just go direct to the notary. We're upfront with that.
Yeah, well, I know that my wife and I did stuff with wills not many months ago, actually. And, here in Spain, I don't know if this is all through Europe or just here in Spain, I can actually write a will based on Scottish law. And she's Spanish, so she had a will based on Spanish law. And then I also needed one based on Spanish law.
You can make a choice of the jurisdictions that apply to your, whether you're being resident in another country, and then once you go down the tax rabbit hole, Andalusia is quite good with inheritance tax if you're wealthy. There's lots of things to look at.
Right.
The problem is it's money, and people don't initially have the money to spend on that kind of service. And it can cost the beneficiaries dearly. That's the problem.
Right. So you can pick up work at the end if they do it on the advice of Bob down the bar.
Well, not necessarily. The person who wins in those circumstances is the Spanish tax office that has to get.
Right.
But the other example is buying a property. When people go into it blindly and they buy a property and various checks aren't carried out. They're not sure where the boundary is. The swimming pool isn't legal. It hasn't officially been signed off from the builders. There's no license to live in the house. The house could be illegal. All the checks that a competent lawyer would carry out. But again, they don't really know until they come to sell it. That's when that problem.
And what you're saying there doesn't necessarily depend on whether it's a new house or an older house, because I had someone in touch with me just last week who their house was built in 1979 and they want to sell it, and then they discovered they don't have their first occupation license.
It happens, yeah. For example, I could write a book on buying this Cortillo in the Alpahar. Thankfully, I had Marisa Moreno, our property expert, who's been doing this for 30 years. Right. And we are two lawyers, and 2 years later, we've got all the paperwork in order.
Yeah.
But no problem buying it. You can buy it, but you don't have all the paperwork you would need in an ideal world. It's not easy.
Yeah, well, I guess if it's an old building, it probably wasn't subject to a lot of things.
No, it's about 200 years old.
Right, okay.
Yeah, you can imagine the complexities are huge. Yeah.
And there are also in Spain a lot of problems sometimes with inheritance, and a
Oh,
property belongs to half a
oh,
dozen different people, and
this belonged to seven different people in 2 different countries.
right, okay,
It's just as you do. Yeah.
yeah, and I know from friends who have had places in France. This must be Napoleon again, but
Yeah.
the same kind of thing happens there, and then you need to get agreement for everyone at the
Oh
same
yeah. Yeah.
time to allow it to be sold and transferred, and
I didn't go into the purchase process with a lot of hope.
really.
But with it belonging to the 7 different people, yeah, yeah. But it's worth it in the end. I mean, the way to avoid the problem is to choose your own independent lawyer. I mean, I'm
Hmm.
not, forget about us. Choose any lawyer you want, as long as it's a lawyer that you found yourself.
Hmm.
Then don't sign or pay anything until that lawyer tells you to.
Right. Okay.
And there's just one more thing: get the lawyer's number. Every lawyer in Spain has a number. Get the lawyer's number. Check with the bar association. Now, just because they tell you you're a lawyer, they're a lawyer, it doesn't mean they are actually a lawyer. And they could be struck off. They could have never been admitted in the first place. But once you've got this number, it means if they mess it up, they're insured by the bar association.
Ah, right. Okay. And the number
So
you're
that
talking about is like the registration number with the bar association, isn't it?
so if um, your lawyer comes along and says, "I can do this for you," say, "Okay, what's your number?" Check with the bar association. That's done. Then that's done. If they mess it up, they're insured. And then say, "Do you want me to pay the deposit?" Yeah, pay. Do you want me to sign
Hmm.
this? I'll sign it. Oh, that's the simple
Hmm.
way of doing it. I
Right.
would say.
You and I have something in common. I'm a local politician, and apparently all politicians are corrupt. You're a lawyer, and all
Yeah,
lawyers are unreliable and untrustworthy.
a
Um,
billions in Brazil. Yeah,
yeah. But I think it is fair to say that there are not just here in Spain, but everywhere, unscrupulous people. I mean, I know lawyers that have been struck off in the UK for doing very dodgy things. So I think the advice you're giving to make sure that these people are properly registered is very good advice.
just look for credibility as well. I mean, for example, um, from Marisa Moreno. She's actually the Danish consul.
Sure.
She's the Danish consul for Andalusia and Extremadura, and she was on the board of directors of the Malaga Bar Association. So
Right.
there's a bit of credibility there.
Sure.
A lot of credibility, but there's some. So just do your own due diligence. You've got Google. Just check
Yeah.
it out. Check out that people are who they say they are.
But
But the number is the definitive.
right. I mean, that is good to know, because let me put alongside politicians and lawyers, estate agents, and we all know that there are very good, formal people out there who do their job as well as they possibly can. But if and it happens a lot down here, people want to buy something and then they find it's not got all the paperwork. That's when your lawyer really needs to step in, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, because the lawyer can say to you, you can buy it, but it hasn't got all the paperwork. Sign here. We've told you. And,
Yes.
and you can do that. But I mean, we're all perhaps guilty of it, but people tend to just leave their head on the aeroplane, don't they? When they come down here, you've got to think, well, what would I do if a good starting point would be, what would I do if I was in England? What would
Sure.
I do?
Sure. Yeah, but
That.
I think what you're saying is correct, John. It's the idea that people get carried away with the sort of romantic notion of buying a house in the sun, and
I mean, you can't blame them. It's lovely down here.
yeah, well, I mean, I live in one of these country places that doesn't have a first occupation license, but I kind of partly knew that
Hey,
when I bought it, but it's like.
house, your house.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not going to get knocked down or anything. It's been here a lot of years, but it's like I like living in this kind of rural setting.
And you know what? I mean, I mean, I think my place is 200 years old. That's just what people have told me when they've seen the old bread oven. But there was no paperwork or anything when it was built. Somebody just built it near a tree. That was it.
So at some point in the past, the house was built, and to prove it, it's there.
Yeah. I mean, you get an architect to say, I think in my case it was, don't quote me, but before 1958, which was the national park, the architect had to say, well, yeah, it was built before then. I mean, they could have wheeled somebody out from the village and said, oh yeah, that's definitely been there, before. I don't, that's the difficulty. And with the paperwork, and then there's the boundary. I mean, what I did was, before I paid anything or signed anything, I just had a walk around the borders with some people from the village. Mm-hmm. I think it was a village day out. There were some people who didn't even say anything, who were just there for the trip.
For the sandwiches and the beer afterwards.
Yeah, had a can of orange paint, and they said, that's your line. Now that old fence there, that's 50 centimeters in the wrong direction. Someone's taken your land. If you're buying a rambling country place, just make sure everyone's on the same page with the boundaries. One thing legally, it's your boundary. The other thing is the neighbor accepting that.
Right.
And if everyone's happy together, then great. You don't need no legal dispute.
Right. So those are two areas that you would advise people to at least consult a lawyer, is for wills and for property purchase. Any other things?
Popular at the moment is obviously residencia. Right. People having, and again, there's no legal requirement for your residencia to be done by a lawyer. But like I said to you earlier, just make sure that the person who's doing your residencia knows how to do it. They're regulated by somebody, and they're insured if it goes wrong, and they're established, so there's less chance of them just disappearing with your money. But there's no requirement for a lawyer to do residencia. I mean,
no, but it is very easy to get it wrong, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there was a client only yesterday, and he'd been to a Hestor and a lawyer to do the residencia. Turns out, all during the whole of the thing, he was married to a Spanish citizen, so he didn't even need to do that.
Right. Okay.
And the poor guy was having his appeal rejected for residencia, and he didn't even need to do that.
Right.
So Reese is going to deal with it on Monday, I think. So all is well.
Right, John. It's been a little bit shorter than we'd expected, but I found this very interesting.
Well, me too. And now I follow Stan Boardman.
I don't even think I got a recording of the end part of Stan, because I think he'd already disappeared into the ether.
I got my witness bill.
Yeah, I am indeed, John. Can I say thank you very much for joining me today? I think it's been very interesting, and for sharing your experiences here down in Spain, from the troglodyte down to the frontline beach. John, I wish you a very good weekend up there in the mountains. I'm sure you got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely. I'll have tapas and beer tonight, so yeah.
That sounds great, John. Thank you so much. And we're going to go out with something from the Electric Light Orchestra. Have a great weekend, John.
You too. Bye.